Hey, it's Alex from Board Game Co., and this might be a shorter video today. I know I say that from time to time, and then you guys can all look at the video length down below and see if I was right or wrong, because currently I have no idea. But why? Why do I say that this will be a shorter video? And the answer is because I don't know how much I can actually talk about Bardsung in a detailed, informative way past surface level information. Because at the end of the day, Bardsung is a dungeon crawler. It's an RPG flavor to a degree, dungeon exploration game for 1 to 5 players. This is a game that, when I say RPG, they are bringing in talents and names that will awe many, and for myself, I mean, no disrespect to legends, to greats or whatnot, but I just don't know a lot of these people. I don't know their lineage, but they are bringing people in. I know that they're bringing in the daughter of Terry Pratchett, and I do love Terry Pratchett, so I can tell you that much. They're bringing in a Ian Livingstone, who has a famous lineage doing other stuff. I don't know. They bring in Sarah Thompson, who has done something to do with disabled D&D writing or whatnot. Again, I don't know these people, unfortunately. And then Luke Gygax, who is the son of the co-creator of D&D. That sounds like a big deal. There are a lot of people in the comments on this video who are very impressed with the degree of writing talent that Bardsung, that Steamforged Games is bringing to the table, and just looking at things like, you know, I guess daughter of Terry Pratchett and son of D&D co-creator, those things sound impressive to me, and the others seem like they are well noted and well loved as well. I'm just not an RPG player. I don't really have any knowledge of this world, so take my ignorance for what it is. It is purely ignorance, but the degree of excitement, to the point, by the way, to the point that I saw comments from people. I saw one specific comment that said, I'm Italian, but if you're not going to properly translate these things, don't, because we don't want you to butcher the sheer writing talent of these people by trying to translate it when you can't properly do so. And that's coming from someone whose native language is not English. So a lot of, I guess, this video is going to be longer than I thought, by the way. I'm starting to realize that. In any case, a lot of writing talent is being brought to the table in this RPG/dungeon crawling experience. And Bardsung itself, there's a lot of things here. At the end of the day, this is a dungeon crawler, okay? This is a dungeon crawler, which means you have to ask yourself the question, or at least I'm asking myself the question, what does it do differently? Why this instead of Gloomhaven? Why this instead of Madara? Why this instead of Altar's Quest, which is actually showing up on my doorstep tomorrow, so we'll see what happens there. Why this instead of Hero Quest? Why this instead of any other Storm Sunder when it comes out? Any other dungeon crawling experience, of which I have named but a handful? Why Bardsung? Why should you play this game? And there's a few things that will differentiate Bardsung. There are a few, some of which will personally pull me into a degree, some of which push me out to a degree, and some of which might be factors for you. So to begin with, the writing talent they are bringing to the table seems like it's pretty darn impressive. Sadly, not a draw for me personally. I go for games because of the mechanics. I reluctantly will get pulled in by good writing, good narrative to a small degree, but ultimately I am a mechanics first person. If I am playing a game, I'm one of those people that when I play Call of Duty, not that I play Call of Duty anymore, but when I do, I am eagerly skipping through all the cutscenes because I just want to shoot people, because that is not, my video's gonna get me demonetized now, but I literally just said on YouTube, I just want to shoot people, which is, and I said it again, which is probably not great for the algorithm. But in any case, the point is that I am somebody who likes the mechanics. I'm somebody who likes the gameplay. I do not get pulled in by the writing, or at least it is incidental when I do so. So not a draw for me, but very likely a draw for many people. And in fact, if you pay attention to the content creators of this game, they seem to be targeting a more RPG fan base, with the exception of King of Average, who thankfully is here as well. They have primarily, you know, they have what's it called, Board Dicebreaker. They have Live and Let's Dice. They have Mature-Minded Gamers. They have a bunch of people who are more in the RPG world. These are less names you will frequently find amongst, you know, board games alone. I mean, Dicebreaker tends to be pulled in for larger titles or video game crossover or whatnot, but it's not the standard roster of names. In fact, the only primary board gamer I saw was King of Average, which I was happy to see his face here, because that gives me a little bit more confidence, might be the right word, that they are to some degree targeting board gamers as well, and not just a gateway gamers for RPG people, to bring them into the fold, so to speak. And bringing people into the fold is great. I have no problem with it, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's a game for me. And to give you an example, if you watch the Live and Let's Dice video, great video, strong testimonial, strong degree of look how good this game, and look at the games that Steamforged Games has delivered in the past, and look at this one as well, and look what it does differently. And yet, no offense to Jules, he doesn't really list anything that Bardsung actually does differently than the various games that you and I might be used to, and I guess you and I is relative depending on who's watching this video. So it's there's a degree of trying to figure out what somebody's tastes are, what their frame of reference is, to understand how that frame of reference applies to me, to yourself, to whoever. And so King of Average, he said that he will be back in this game, and so he enjoyed the game. So that's, again, doesn't mean you'll like it, doesn't mean I'll like it, but he is a primary board gamer first and foremost, and so that information, that feedback is relevant. As far as other things they're doing differently, in fact, the other things that make Bardsung differently, to begin with, they are focusing very heavily on a short setup time. They want this game to be accessible and easy to set up. I mean, a lot of people are focusing on how you just get things on the table and you start, and part of that is because the dungeon, let's see if we can find a video here or whatnot, the dungeon explores over as you, here we go, perfect, and well, not perfect, almost perfect. The dungeon itself will build as you explore. This is not a Gloomhaven where you'll be setting up a preset map and laying out tokens and doing all the stuff just before you start the game. Rather, this is a game where you'll put out your tile, and then you'll start exploring, you'll start moving, and so the game will unfold as you play rather than before you play, and that removes a significant barrier of entry to the game. It comes with a downside for sure. There's less control over how things play out, and that lack of control can result in a potentially less balanced experience, but that's pure conjecture. At the end of the day, what they are for sure doing is they are delivering a more accessible experience out the door just because of setup alone. Additionally, they have this, and I don't know the full details on this, but they have an interesting aspect in terms of the turn order. The way the cards will either be shuffled or put together, and you'll take turns alternating yourself and there's a card row, I can't find it over here, there's a card row that delivers the activation sequencing, which is, it's a nice thing. I think that other games have done it to a degree. Conan has its own sort of card row, so it's not the first time something like this has been seen. Aeon's End has that aspect, although it's not a dungeon crawler, so it just certainly is doing something differently there. As far as the actual gameplay or whatnot, there's going to be two things here, and this is a big deal. I want to focus on this because if not for this, I would be inherently out, whereas as of now, I am undecided. And that aspect is they keep preaching the pros of the 50-hour campaign game, which to me, I'm exhausted from campaign games. This might be the campaign game for you, but I already have to make hard decisions as to which of the campaign games in my collection actually get to stay, given the fact that I don't have time for epic, long, sprawling campaign games. And so another one would turn me off. But Bardsung does have one-shot adventures, and one-shot adventures, the reason I like them, even if a campaign game is better, even if it will deliver a better experience. Take Arena of the Contest, this is a great example. Arena of the Contest can be done as a one-shot adventure or as a campaign game, and you'll get more of an experience out of that campaign game, for sure. But at the same time, I can lie to myself more easily as I play the one-shot adventure and promise myself that years down the road, I will eventually get to the campaign. But I don't do that if I'm not playing the game at all. If I'm not playing the game at all, it has to go. I do not keep games I'm not playing. But a game that I can one-shot as I get used to it, as I pull out Bardsung, get it to the table, try it out, I'm like, that's great, one day I'm going to do the campaign game. That lets me lie to myself. And lying to myself is an important aspect of my board game hobby, trying to convince myself that I will play that game, that I should play that game, that one day I will go through all 50 hours of Bardsung, experiencing it however. But my point is that you can play this both as a one-shot adventure as well as a 50-hour campaign game. The actual gameplay itself, the symbology or whatnot, and I want to go through a full playthrough. I've watched bits and pieces. Unfortunately, I've not had a chance to watch any of the full delved-in playthroughs, and I really want to because I want to get a feel for the strategy of the game. Because both a pro and a con of Bardsung, at least so far, is it seems to have a very accessible and simple system in terms of the way you level up your characters, the symbology on the cards, those different aspects that make it look very accessible. And yet that level of accessibility, that lack of 3 or 4 rows of text on each card of each ability, that lack of accessibility is that accessibility is a pro in the sense that it makes it easier to just jump in, to just kind of see things. It's not heavy strategy. You're not Gloomhavening it up as you look at the cards and figure out which order to do things. But at the same time, it comes at the cost of strategy. And that cost of strategy might make Bardsung a bigger experience to set up, to get mentally involved in, without the payoff of that kind of thing. Maybe if I want that kind of experience, I'll just play Century Spice Road or any of these other more accessible lighter games. So I don't know where Bardsung is going to fall in terms of that complexity versus accessibility and what it does for my collection or for your collection. And speaking of cards, I'm going to nitpick over here. They have these cards over here, the linen card finish, and I was just looking at these cards and I was thinking, the first thing I thought of was, what was it again? It's a phenomenal cosmic artwork itty bitty font size. This is like a lot of artwork on the cards for a tiny degree of font size, and that's something. Steamforged Games, if you watch this, I hope you do something about that text size, that font size, because that's a lot of card devoted to artwork and a tiny amount devoted to font size, which I think you can notch that up a point or two. I think that would probably improve. Granted, card's not in front of me, could be very different in person, but that font size feels like it could have been bigger given the space on the card. And that is enough about Bardsung, and at 10 minutes in, without even getting to the pledge levels and the should you back it, I realized that once again, I have lied to myself about my ability to deliver a shorter video. I told you, I do lie to myself. It's an important part of this hobby for me. In any case, Steamforged Games, let's talk about Steamforged Games before we talk about the pledge level, because Steamforged Games, if you know, I've given them a hard time in the past. That's because they have a checkered history is probably the wrong term, probably too extreme, but they have a history starting with Dark Souls. Dark Souls was their first Kickstarter, and they delivered an epic sprawling IP game that seemed to be kind of a dud in terms of the actual gameplay experience it delivered. It was good, but far from great. Lots of house ruling. I know people who like it talk about how much you have to house rule, and that's just a no-go for me. Resident Evil delivered kind of the reverse. Less impressive miniatures, and yet a slightly better game, and yet still far from where we'd ideally like to see it. Then they had God Tier. Now, God Tier is well rated. This is the exception to their game so far in terms of this one is incredibly well rated. It does not for everyone, obviously, but it's their own unique miniature line. It's not an IP that they bought into or whatnot, and they delivered a very well-received combat game. Then we have Horizon Zero Dawn, which I think has only just started showing up. I don't know the exact where that is exactly, but I haven't really seen a lot of hype around it. But again, another IP that they may or may not have delivered on. Then we have Devil May Cry, another IP, Resident Evil, another IP, and now back to Bardsung. And so Steamforged Games, they seem like a great company. They clearly produce amazing miniatures, but understand that with the exception of God Tier, they have produced mediocre games so far, not counting whatever hasn't delivered and hasn't been well received or any of that. And so it is a bit of a risk, and that's why I want to watch these playthroughs. That's why I want to dive into the experience and see, is this a game for me? Try to get a feel, watch people playing and get a feel for whether I feel like there are choices being made or whether it just kind of is a lot of sheen, I don't really know the right word there, on an okay game at best. I want to see where this lies. The good news is they clearly deliver, and they also tend to deliver on average pretty awesome miniatures. And speaking of the miniatures for this game, let's take a look at the nice thing over here. So first of all, scale wise, where do we have the scale? We have the Epic Beast or whatnot. I don't know what the name of this one is called. We have the scale for the miniatures over here from 25 to 25, 25, 50, and 120 millimeter. That's for the bases. Over here, you get a good shot of what actually is included in the game. These miniatures, I would say, I would call them above average. They're certainly very good. I don't know if they're amazing. I don't know if I'm seeing anything that is amazing is the wrong word. With all these campaign games, with all these miniature games, it's not so much that miniatures have to be amazing, rather they have to stand out in some way. They have to do something about them that people say, I want those miniatures on my table. And these are good. I'd be happy to own them. Like I said, above average without making me say I need those miniatures. As far as stretch goals, we started to unlock stuff already. It's just day 2 of the campaign already. We have the Thief, 2 heroes already. Another hero that's being unlocked as we speak. It seems to be a combination of animals and females in this game so far. I don't know if that's going to continue. I like the idea of an all-female cast is interesting. I have no problem with it. I like the push to a direction to. I don't mind it. What confuses me is not the females alone, rather why females and animals. What's the combination going on there? It has me baffled. Maybe we'll see some males, maybe not. Doesn't really bother me. I'd almost rather an all-female cast. That would just be simpler enough. Then we have the effervescent ooze and the wolf pack over here. Keep in mind, when King of Average says he likes the game, all he really means is that there are wolves in the game, and that's enough for him. So understand that his opinion, and by the way, for those who don't know King of Average, he loves wolves. I'm poking fun at him. I'm not actually trying to question his opinion of the game. In any case, moving on from there, let's look at the pledge levels, and that's going to be very simple, because at €75, or £75, £75 or $100, you can get the core pledge, which supposedly is going to be retailing at $150, which is completely believable. Have you seen the new Descent 3.0 or whatnot? A completely believable pledge level for something that is going to retail and whatnot in terms of something of this scale, this size. The flip side is you're getting a giant discount, and that discount is going to be half wiped out once you cover shipping, depending on where you are exactly. But additionally, in addition to the shipping cost or whatever, you're also going to get all the miniatures, all the stretch goals for this game as well, and that is going to make this one almost a no-brainer. Now let's delve into that no-brainer aspect. So Effectively, if you back this game, it is almost certainly a good back, but always make sure to try to get a feel for whether the game is good, whether it's for you, whether it's not, and try it out and then move on from it as soon as possible if it's not. Because things that are a dud, it doesn't matter how many miniatures there are, if something is a dud, it will not hold its value past 3, 6, 9 months, and the more of a dud it is, the less you have on that timeline to get rid of something. I don't believe this will be a dud. From what I'm seeing here, especially with the King of Average's opinion, it does help. I don't think it's going to be a dud by a long shot. I think that the question is not whether it's a dud, the question is whether it stands out enough to earn a spot in your collection. And that between that, the price point, the miniatures, the stretch goals, and Steamforged's past history, even Dark Souls, which arguably was a dud in terms of how good the game was, even that one still holds its value. The Kickstarter pledge definitely holds its value there, and so I think it is likely to be very similar with Steamforged Games. This is a game that will almost certainly hold its value and will probably deliver a good to great game along the way. I will note that this is Steamforged Games, which means if you think that this is the only thing you're buying, that $100 pledge, and no other optional buys, well, prep your wallet, because I would guess, it's hard to know exactly, I would guess you're looking at between $250 to $300 for all in on this game. Almost every single Kickstarter Steamforged Games has done, not all of them, but almost every, has certainly layered on those optional buys. I'm not blaming them, all the companies I like do it. We have Command doing it out through the nose. We have Arcane Wonders has just been doing it with Freedom 5, and that's gotten a little bit of pushback, although most people are pretty happy about it. And then we have Steamforged Games, which historically has done it as well. So basically, in conclusion, maybe I'll just put a timestamp for this of, whole video in 3 seconds. Bardsung looks like an accessible game that is delivering it's harder to do than I thought. Bardsung looks like it's an accessible game that is delivering a RPG dungeon crawler with some differences that may make it stand out from the crowd, but perhaps not enough to make it overly stand out from the crowd. It is overall a good back, and the pledge levels will come in at around 150. Well, the pledge levels will probably come in between the $100 basic pledge to $250 to $300 for all the stuff that you want by the time this campaign is done. And we do have 14 days to go, so I would expect that possibly tomorrow is when that first optional buy drop hits. That's basically it. That's everything. Until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. Let me know in the comments down below if you are backing this, yes or no, and why. I am very curious. I'm still doing my own research to see if this is a game for me. I'm not worried about the value part. I'm just worried about whether it's a game for me. Until next time, have a good one.